Welcome to Case Study Commercialization and Service Differentiation in Cape Verde. Before going to the case study, let me give you a little bit of background about myself. So back in 2020, I completed my master's in environmental science from Eötvös University in Hungary. And my focus there was specifically on measuring radon gas on drinking water together with other physical parameters. Then, at the end of the study, I realized that most of the results question was around why these results look like this. And just a couple of months later, I enrolled in a program at IHE Delft in water management and governance. But for now, at this moment, I'm doing my PhD at Södertörn University in Sweden, and my research continues to be focused on practical implementation of water policies, but specifically, I'm checking manage aquifer recharge in Hungary. The objectives of the study case are structured as follows. First, we want to reflect on the impact of commercialization and the aspects that need to be considered for seeds context. And we want to explain why utility operates in the way they operate and discuss the concerns related to water access for all. And less critically reflect on the role of the government in providing water service. The case study is structured as follows, and here also you can see more or less the time it will take. First, we will see the goals of the reform, why ADS needed to implement the reform, and how the commercialization principle takes place. And we will quickly go into a general background on the theory and critiques related to commercialization. And last, we will focus more of our time on discussing the case, specifically on how actually the water utility employs commercialization in practice. Within the Water Sector Reform Compact, Águas de Santiago was established in 2016 by the Cape Verdean government decisions to improve the performance of water utility in Cape Verde. The utility is owned by the 9 municipalities on the island of Santiago, and the aim was to improve service coverage, quality of the water services, and the financial sustainability of the provision. And as you can see in this scheme, we have the utility reform activity among other activities that took place, and then the ASC needed to fulfill many goals towards reducing poverty and economic growth of the country. The decision to a commercial public utility stemmed from the government's belief that it would actually improve service coverage, quality of the service, and financial sustainability of the utility, and while ensuring water access for all. But there is two main critiques to this commercialization principle. It says that in practice, it's actually difficult to balance financial goals, commercial goals with the social objectives. And the second critique is actually saying that commercialization principles aggravate existing water problems to particular group of consumers. And in trying to balance these two goals, service differentiation comes up to argue that it is actually possible if the services are tailored depending on consumers' affordability. Now we will spend the rest of the time to actually analyze how Águas de Santiago practice commercialization at Águas de Santiago in Santa Cruz municipality. Due to geographical challenge, Águas de Santiago employs three ways to supply water to consumers. First is in-house connection. It's usually found in urban or well-developed areas where infrastructure is more established. And in Cape Verde, 66% of the population have access to water, and then the remaining population, remaining percentage, 34, receive water through standpipes or water trucks. These two modalities are for areas where in-house connection are not feasible, and then the community standpipes and the water trucks, they play a vital point for people to collect water. To understand a little bit of context in which Águas de Santiago operates in, let's quickly see the climate and the rainfall characteristic of the country. And we are situated in West Africa, as you can see in this round red. And the country have a semi-arid climate with irregular distribution of precipitation in time and in space. And the annual average rainfall varies from 200 to 300 millimeters, and it might increase in high altitudes, but that is the average, so you can have an idea. The water is supplied, distributed intermittently across the country and all islands. And more than 0.5% of the population live in rural areas, often isolated and mountainous with difficult access. And I just mentioned previously that it means that most of the population is relying on standpipe and water trucks. In this table, you can see how the water supply looks like in Santa Cruz. There are basically two main distribution systems. One, I call it Pedra Badejo 3 and Pedra Badejo 4. That is PBA 3 and PBA 4. The PBA supply areas in city center, and the main water source are well and seawater desalination. And the PBA 4 mainly seawater desalination and supply to Achá da Fazenda, that is the low-income area. But also an interesting aspect is that this network are characterized by two features. The old network, that is galvanized iron and asbestos, or sometimes, that was introduced in the municipality around 1990. But in 2003, through a French cooperation project, the galvanized iron and asbestos pipes were to be replaced by higher material like PVC, polyvinyl chloride pipe, and high-density polyethylene pipes that initially should be replaced to the whole area. But this project, this rehabilitation project, ended, and it did not cover the entire city's water network, and leaving some household in both areas connected to old network, meaning still to the pipe or asbestos or with less quality material. In addition to the pipes, the valves also are a form of a very important component for water distribution in the municipality. There is a range of activities that are that valve operators perform, such stopping the water flows or start the water, and these activities allows the flow, the direction to different areas, reduce pressure, and reduce and control pressure. While a number of these valves are present in the old network, they are absent in the new network. In pursuing its mandate as a commercial public utility, Águas de Santiago employs three practices. The first practice involves minimizing operating hours of the entire system. For the utility, operating the system for 24 hours per day will mean the running of the water infrastructure for the entire period with operational staff present to monitor the system. And by supplying water intermittently, then, the utility aims to reduce cost of service provision through the minimization of wear and tear of the infrastructure, reduce electricity cost, and minimize operational cost. As you can see here, there is some interesting quote that says that rest the pump saves resource. And another one is emphasizing that intermittent supply is beneficial as there is a high level of leakage around of 66%. And then another quote says that if they distribute water 24 hours per day, there is more waste of water. Meanwhile, implementing this practice, ADS prioritize service to areas where it's expected that sufficient revenues can be generated to cover the cost, like supplying agua to Ashada Fatima, the city center, where actually there they receive water supply 5 times a week for almost 12 hours from 6 in the morning until around 6 or 5:30 in the afternoon. But Ashada Fazenda, that is the low-income area, receives water only twice a week for 7 hours, from 6 until 1 p.m. In justifying this practice, the utility qualifies consumers for Ashada Fazenda as being not good payers. Another form of differentiation practiced by Águas de Santiago is through the development and management of water infrastructure to different areas. This differentiation starts with the size of reservoirs and the pipes connecting the different areas from the reservoir points. While the reservoir servicing Ashada Fatima has a capacity of 1,000 cubic meters, Ashada Fatima is the city center. They have a distribution pipe diameter of 250 millimeter, and Ashada Fazenda receive water from 500 cubic meter reservoir and 150 millimeter diameter of the pipe. And Ashada Fazenda is the low-income area. Differentiation is also evident within the types of network, old and new network, as I mentioned before, and the valves connecting the different areas. After that French cooperation rehabilitation project, Águas de Santiago did not have sufficient funds to move customers who remained connected to the old network to the new network, so the cost of the transition is charged to the households. Those who cannot afford or were aware of this situation, old and new network, they remain connected to the old network. When distributing water to the city, Águas de Santiago prioritize areas connected to the new network, and because this new network is prevalent in the city center, then consumers there tend to receive more water than in Achada Fazenda, the low-income area. With such prioritization, ADS assumes that consumers who can afford to connect to the new network have the capacity also to pay for the water they receive. In addition, the lack of session involved on the new network ensure that consumers connected in this network have a more continuous water flow to their homes from the reservoir. But in Achada Fazenda, the low-income area where all networks are prevalent, the flow of water is further restricted by a number of non-functional valves. The valves are stuck, or they cannot be opened, or they are closed further. And just for an idea, during the visit, 13 valves were installed on the old network connecting these areas for distributing the pipes, but only 3 were functional. They said that many of them are not working anymore, and Águas Santiago don't want to fix it. This means that consumers connected on the section of the network where the valves are stuck, water flow is restricted in terms of quantity and pressure. As one household responded connected to the old network, she was experienced that she rarely see water in the pipe, even though she often sees her neighbor receiving water every day, and she only see water drops or air because the people connecting the old network, they receive water less. A third differentiation strategy adopted by the utility in the implementation of its commercial mandate is through water quality maintenance activities carried out across the two areas. As emphasized and required by our National Plan for Water Quality Control, it demands the water utility to carry out different types of control. There are Control 1 and Control 2. Control 1 includes E. coli, total coliform, odor, electroconductivity, color, residual chlorine, pH, taste, temperature, and turbidity. And control 2 includes all of these and 20 parameters and pesticides. But as emphasized by the one interview, these control, they are impossible to be done, and because there is no dedicated transport available for the department and the laboratory is situated far to the points they need to collect. And in practice, the utility predominantly adheres to Control 1. Even within the framework of Control 1, the utility does not measure all the required parameters. The parameters monitored by the utilities laboratory includes temperature, conductivity, turbidity, and coliforms. In monitoring these parameters, the utility does not focus on the entire system. Monitoring is largely limited to the production system like wells and desalination plant and the reservoirs, the main distribution reservoirs. Also, when carrying out monthly monitoring of the production system, the laboratory focuses more on the system closer to the seed center, which serves Ashada Fatima and other closer areas. And sampling and monitoring are the systems that serve as shadow fazenda is only carried out when they receive some complaints, and the person responsible for this area said that there is no transportation to available, so the person relies on the operator saying that there is complaints, and then they need to go to the place. This differentiation monitoring practice are justified by Agua de Santiago as the official guidelines are considered unimplementable. As I mentioned, the people carrying out these activities, they think there is a mismatch between the reform activities and the practical reality of the country and the Agua de Santiago. So the central idea of service differentiation is that it allows water utilities to provide a level of service to all consumers while maintaining the financial viability of the water utility. And we have seen to do it these different strategies that Agua de Santiago employs. And by differentiating services through tailored infrastructure, organizational arrangement, and financial regimes, all consumers receive some degree of service, and this is highlighted by a number of scholars in the field. And then in the literature promoting service differentiation, the underlying idea is that a level of a service is linked to payment for that level of service. And if there is a higher level of service, then it also suggests a higher tariff. But as we saw, the case of Agua de Santiago provides a different manifestation of service differentiation. Uh, while service differentiation in the literature often refers to different service modality, for example, there is a tailored service technology, use of intermediary like water trucks, vendors, different financial regimes for the payment. The case of Agua de Santiago highlights that service differentiation happens within the same service modality, within the network pipe, within the in-house connection. So in this case, Agua de Santiago, uh, in the case of the Agua de Santiago, all consumers receive water through in-house connection, and they are directly served by the same water utility and pay the same tariffs for water service. And then what distinguishes the case of Agua de Santiago is that This particular manifestation of differentiation is largely the result of operational decisions and the type of infrastructure a water distribution follows. We can see, for example, the utility managers decide to prioritize the network over prioritize the new network over the old network. And we see also that utility managers decide to limit service to a Shada Fazenda to the low-income area 2 times a week, while a Shada Fatma receive water 5 times a week. We also see that utility managers decide to prioritize water quality monitoring in the nearby city center due to financial and transportational issue. We also see that supporting the operational decisions in the infrastructure that provides water to the different areas in terms of reservoir service in Ashada Fatima is bigger than Ashada Fazenda. The pipes connected to the water supply also has a different characteristic. And at the same time, the financial regime for all these consumers connected either to the old or to the new network are the same. So the operational decisions that lead to differentiation in terms of the availability of water and the quality of the water provided is largely argued on the basis of commercial reason. And this was emphasized in all the interviews by middle level, high level management decision of the company. Because they have a mandate to operate as a commercial viable utility. And managers, they have the responsibility to assess the commercial risk of the water service provision. In this case, the risk as perceived by the utility managers are larger for service in the old network and the consumers living in a shadow fazenda who are considered to be unreliable when it comes to paying their water bills. Those managers often refer that they rely on debt forgiveness during an electoral campaign, and therefore the utility manager need to make operational decisions accordingly, and they need to prioritize service to the new network where they can receive payment and in a more stable situation. So what results for consumers living in a shadow fazenda and those connected to the old network is that they are stuck in a low service level, or let's call it low level equilibrium. So the utility manager of the ADS appears to view the level of service provided to this consumer as being sufficient, and any improvement is perceived to go at the cost that the utility cannot afford or is not at least commercially viable. We reached the end of this case study, and I want to highlight 4 key messages. The first one is that service differentiation or following commercialization principles are reasonable decisions that what utility managers do or make, because they need to assess the commercial risk of the service provision. Because balancing these commercial goals and social objectives, it's not easy in practice, because at the end of the day, they need to keep up with their operational costs. The second aspect is that adhering then to these commercial principles in the seeds context are more difficult in practice. There are a number of aspects that need to be considered, like size of the municipality, market type, politician agendas, many cultures believe and how they think about water infrastructures. And the second one is to access an improved level of service. Consumers need to pay to connect to the new network, or they need to move out of the low-income area. That is reflected in this case study, where consumers need to pay an extra cost to move to the new network. And the next and the last message is actually to get out of this low service level. The state need to intervene to provide financial support to the utility, because utility has no incentive to do otherwise.